Hello YouTube, welcome back to another Crime Couples episode. I'm Harrison.
I'm Ashley.
And today we're going to be looking at the case of Darlie Routier and whether or not she is guilty or innocent in the senseless murder of her two children, Damon and Devin. And if you haven't done it yet, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and also click the little bell. It helps you keep up to date with what we're doing. And if you like our content and crime content, unsolved, make sure to do that. Hit subscribe. Also, comment below, let us know if you have any other information, if you've heard anything different, and also if you have any other questions, because we will be responding to anything that you might put out, whether we know the answers or not. We look forward to hearing from you.
Darlie Routier was born on January 4th, 1970. She was born in Altoona, Pennsylvania, but shortly thereafter moved to Dallas, Texas with her family. At the young age, I think it was like 15 or 16, she met Darlie Routier, and they ended up getting married. And they lived in Rowlett, Texas, which is a bedroom community. It's very wealthy and very affluent. They had 3 kids when the events occurred. Devin was 6, Damon was 5, and Drake was 8 months old. So prior to all of this, Darlie had discussed with Darren that she was experiencing some postpartum depression with this 3rd baby. All accounts say that she spoke to Darren that day, and she had been sleeping downstairs on the couch for the week. Darren and Darlie were very well off, as we said. They lived in Rowlett, Texas. They had a large home that they built just for them. They had a boat. They had 2 vehicles. I think Darren had like a Jaguar or something like that. Yeah. And she had some sort of SUV. She was a stay-at-home mom. Darren made enough money at his self-made electronics business to allow her to stay home. So she prided herself on this. Everyone in the neighborhood said she was a great mom. She was very attentive. They always did things together. But the week before this, Darren's vehicle had gotten, something was wrong with it, and it was in the shop. So he was having to take her vehicle to and from his work, and it kind of left Darlie sitting at home, you know, just being with the kids one-on-one all day. So among the children, Drake was the youngest at 8 months. Damon and Devin were very close in age. Damon was very shy and kind of kept to himself, whereas Devin was very outgoing. They said that he was the wild child. So she said that he was kind of difficult to handle at times, which I completely can understand that. We have a 2-year-old at home.
So on June 6, 1996, their lives changed forever. At 2:31, police in the area received a 911 call from Darlie, and it was a hysterical call that her and her 2 sons, Damon and Devin, had been stabbed multiple times and they were bleeding. They went ahead and went further to go ahead, and she rambled on trying to give them the address. It was a pretty hard thing to listen to. Now, coming up here in a minute, we are going to play the recorded police call that she placed 911. It is 5 minutes and 42 seconds. So it is a little bit long of a call, but we're going to do, since it is a little bit, I wouldn't say graphic, but it's kind of, it's definitely something hard to listen to, especially as a parent. So we're going to go ahead and put a timestamp down below, so that if you need to skip forward,
fast forward, you can. Yeah. So it is it's kind of graphic, especially if you're a parent. It's just hard to listen to because you can really feel her
emotion,
hysteria, and her crazy franticness. I don't even know how I would be in that event. So we're going to go ahead and play that. And like we said, we're going to leave a stamp on the bottom. So if you'd like to fast forward, go ahead.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? Who did? Hang on. Hang on, ma'am. Ma'am? I'm on medical emergency 681 Eagle Drive. Ma'am, I'm trying to get an ambulance to you. Hang on a minute. My babies are dying. What's going on, ma'am? Oh my God! Medical emergency 580 and Limbo. Attention 901 medical emergency. Maybe possible stabbing 5801 Eagle Drive by 238 Celtic Linda and Limbo coming out 232. Stand by, car center. Hey. Oh my God. Unit 44601 Eagle Drive 5801 Eagle Drive. The surface is on the phone. Hold on. Child has been stabbed. Ma'am, I need you to calm down and talk to me. 1501 Eagle. Ma'am, listen to me. I need you to. Oh my God. Can you take the radio clip? Yes. Ma'am, I need you to talk to me. Ma'am, I can't understand you. You're going to have to slow down, calm down, and talk to me. What is going on? Somebody's keeping them all sleeping. Me and my little boys are sleeping downstairs. Stand up, baby. Stand there. Look up. I was trying to. We ran out to the garage. They're not dead. My babies are dying. They're dead. Oh my God. Down the telephone. Oh my God. Just that one. Hold on, honey. Hold on. Hold on. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ma'am, who's there with you? Ma'am. What? Is there anybody in the house besides you and your children? My husband, he's just right downstairs. He's helping me, but he's dying. Oh my God. Okay. How many little boys? Is it 2 boys? Okay, listen to me. Calm down. Go ahead. 5801 Eagle Drive. 5801 Eagle Drive. Going to be a stabbing. When are they going to be here? Ma'am, they're on their way. Oh my God. Ma'am, how old are your boys? What? How old are your boys? No. Okay. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh, calm down, can you? Oh my God! Your name, Darlie? Yes. Your husband's name, Darren? Yes, please. God, they're taking forever. There's nobody in your head. You don't know who this is? There's a knife. Don't touch anything. I already touched it. Anybody out there? I don't know. Okay, ma'am, listen. There's a police officer at your front door. Is your front door unlocked? Yes, ma'am. It's like the ambulance. Okay. It's very creepy. If I don't get in here, they're going to be sad. My God, they're dead. Please. Okay, is 82 out on Eagle? Huh? That Eagle. What Eagle? My God, hurry. 82, you out. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why would they do this? What did he say? Why would they do this? Okay, listen, ma'am. You need to let the officers in the front door, okay? What? Ma'am? What? You need to let the police officers in the front door. This guy's playing over there and I already picked it up. Okay, it's alright. It's okay. We got the press, baby. Ma'am, is the police officer there? Okay, go talk to him, okay? Yes, that's okay. Go talk to him, though. Okay?
So, as we just listened to in that 911 call, it was definitely full of a lot of emotion. It was pretty hysterical at points, and I know the first time I heard it, it kind of shook me as well. During the call, though, however, there was multiple mentions that, you know, she was saying, my boys are dead, they've been stabbed, I've been stabbed and attacked, and she described this person attacking them and leaving. And one of the things she pointed out a few times in that has caught a lot of attention and is interesting is that she had mentioned that the intruder had dropped or left the knife they used to stab. And in the call, you can hear the dispatcher say, "Oh, well, don't touch it. Don't touch anything." She says, "I've already touched it. I've already touched it. We could have used that to get the prints." And so she mentions that multiple times throughout the call and also when the first responding officer gets there. So it leaves a big question. Is there a reason that she's trying to make an excuse about the prints on the knife? Is there a reason that she's trying to use this as a way to give her an alibi for why her prints were left on this knife?
Right. So Officer Waddell arrived on scene at 2:34. He arrived to a very gruesome scene. He stated there was blood all over the living room, in the kitchen area. It was covered everywhere. He saw Darlie was still on the phone with dispatch, and she was holding a towel up to her neck. So he was unable to see her wounds. Obviously, he goes right to the boys, and Devin is lifeless. Later, we've kind of looked at the accounts, and he was stabbed so viciously that it cracked.
It impaled him.
It impaled him, but it cracked the cement floor underneath the carpet. He was stabbed, they say 2-3 times, but the knife went through his entire body. And Damon was still alive. Officer Waddell, after Darlie got off the phone, had said, "You need to come over here and tend to your son." But during this time, she was more focused on her touching the knife and her cuts and her wounds that she never, after Officer Waddell asked her to go 3 times to her son, she just kept changing the subject or diverting, focusing on her own wounds rather than tending to him.
And I don't know about you, but I know both of us as parents, we could care less about what's going on with us. If there's something that our baby is hurt, that is our only focus.
That's your main focus. I don't care if my arm's falling off. Like, if there's something wrong with her, like, mm-mm. So Darlie began to tell Officer Waddell basically what happened that day. She said she stayed downstairs with the boys because they wanted to have a little camp out. And she had been down there for the past week just because she wasn't sleeping well with Drake. I think we all know how newborn babies are, and they really get the best of you. You don't sleep much. So I think, like we mentioned before, she was struggling with some postpartum depression. So she just wanted a little bit of sleep, and Darren was okay with that. So he was upstairs. He said he went to bed around midnight that night, and they were still up watching TV. So Darlie said the boys fell asleep shortly thereafter, and she said she dozed off around 12:30. Around 2 in the morning, she said, there's 2 different accounts. She said the intruder woke her up, and then Damon woke her up. So we're going to go with her first.
She changed her story a few times.
Yeah, so we're going to go with her first, that she said she woke up to an intruder at her feet. He was walking out of the room, and she decided to go chase after him. She didn't know that her kids were stabbed or she was stabbed at this point, she says. So she gets up and then realizes, oh my goodness, it's dark. So she turns around, runs, turns the light on, and sees him leave. But she also sees him drop the knife on the floor. And they recreated this scene, and there's a large kitchen island. And if she had been standing where she had been standing, she was not able to physically see the knife. So, I mean, we're going to go over all these different myths and theories.
There's a lot of details.
There's a lot of details, but she said he drops the knife in the utility room. So she runs out there thinking he's still in the area, picks up the knife to defend herself, she says, and realizes there's no threat. She walks back in, realizes she's all bloody, sets the knife down on the counter, and calls 911. While Darlie was speaking to Officer Waddell, Sergeant Wallen came in at 2:37, and they did a sweep of the house to ensure EMS was safe to enter. So they tended to the boys and recognized Damon had already passed, so he was left there for forensic examining purposes, and Damon was taken in the ambulance to go to the closest hospital. He later passed away in the ambulance. Darlie was also taken to the hospital at 3:25 a.m. She appeared in the ER, and by 3:40 she was in surgery. She had an incised wound on her right forearm, and for those of you who are unsure, an incised wound is a wound that is longer in nature rather than deeper. And I mean, our arms aren't very thick, so I understand that, but it did go all the way down to the bone. But again, the bone is probably only 3/4 of an inch to an inch down in your skin. She also had a slash wound on her neck, extending through her collarbone. Although they appeared very, very severe in nature, surgeons and medical personnel said that they were more superficial in nature. She did miss her carotid artery by millimeters. But again, if you look at the anatomy of your neck, you don't have very much skin in between the outside and your vessels underneath. And you have a lot of vessels in your neck that would cause a bleed out within 5 minutes if you severed them.
Right.
So while Darlie was in surgery, both of the boys were pronounced dead by the coroner.
So while the family was at the hospital being treated for all the wounds and everything, and while Darlie was in surgery, the police started to do their investigation and started doing their part. They did have the house guarded the entire time, made sure that no one was able to come in that was not authorized. So they did have that. They had the area on lockdown. They started doing spread searches out. The investigators started going through the house, looking for anything so they could try to figure out what happened, where the point of entry would be, where all the things took place, trying to play out the scene of how it happened. And so while canvassing the area and looking around for stuff, they did come across a neighbor who was willing to speak up and help. And she had said that she had noticed a dark vehicle that was not recognized in this neighborhood, parked outside the alleyway at 3 a.m. Another interesting thing about the alleyway is it's kind of in between the homes. It's not on the main roads, and it's not really used as a road except for the people that live there for where they park. So she did say that it was really obviously odd at 3 a.m., right? But it was not recognized. So apparently the police looked into this somewhat, but they didn't really go too far when they didn't find anything, and apparently it was just kind of dropped.
So let it go.
So at this point, they start looking into other things. They actually bring in an investigator by the name of James Cron. Now he is actually retired at this point, but he was extremely relevant back when he was working, and he had solved tons of cases apparently, right? So there's different information out there about him. So he comes through and he gives aid to the police department to look into this forensic disaster and try to help make some sense of it.
So as they were looking outside, the search dogs, they looked all through the house to try to find an intruder scent, per se. They were unable to find anything in the home, but the dog did lead them, like Harrison was saying, down the alleyway, 75 yards away from the home. They found one of Darren's white socks, and it literally had like 2 spots of blood on it. But the blood was confirmed to be Devin and Damon's. Now, we're going to put a picture up of this sock. I don't know about you, but I don't know what purpose this sock would have in this investigation.
How it got such little amounts of blood on it compared to everything else.
Exactly. The scene is saturated, and this sock has 2 specks of blood on it. And why is it the only thing that they found 75 yards away from the home? So they were doing a search inside, and they said the biggest evidence they're going to have is with the blood splatter, because that doesn't lie. You know, people lie, but evidence at a crime scene does not. So they had the house shut down for, I think, like 2 to 3 weeks. They were doing daily, just going in and searching everything. They said if there was a book, they looked through every page. You know, it was very, very detailed and very, very in-depth. They did notice that Darlie had said that the intruder left through the garage or out the utility. But then when they went to that area, they found a window that the screen had been sliced open with a knife. They also noted that the blood trail that was everywhere else stopped when it hit the garage, which is where he was supposed to be exiting through. So after brutally murdering and stabbing these children and blood is everywhere, I don't get how it just stops when you go in the garage. Like, he had all this blood on him. How did it get off, and how did it not?
Didn't spread anywhere.
Any evidence anywhere in the garage. There were a lot of mismatched. I mean, I actually printed out this like book of stuff. It had like 14 myths for this case, and that doesn't even hit the tip of the iceberg with the information, all the case reports and stuff that we both looked up. I mean, it's very, very in-depth. It took us a long time to prepare for this. So Darlie had been out of surgery for about an hour, and Detective Patterson came to the hospital around 6:15 a.m. 15 minutes prior to his investigation, he went there to go just ask her questions about the night. She had received 25 milligrams of Demerol. Now, that is not a drug that is prescribed today. It's more equivalent to about 4 milligrams of morphine, or like a 0.5 milligram of Dilaudid, which is pain medication that's used today. So she might have been a little hazy. Yeah. So Detective Patterson said she was very, very responsive. She was very, very giving on her information. She was very open and honest with it. But I don't know. They said that she had just gotten some Demerol, so I don't know. Her statement was that she woke up in the morning with an attacker standing over her. She said that as he was walking away, she noticed that he had a dark cap on, a dark shirt, and shoulder-length hair. She said she struggled with him on the couch and at the bar, and he flew out of the garage. He asked, "Tell me about the days before." And she said that on June 5th, it was an average day. Her sister had come over to have dinner because she worked with Darren at the electronics company. And after dinner, she said she was just so tired that Darren drove her sister Dana home. There are a lot of D's. So when Darren got home from bringing his sister, or Darlie's sister, he said that they were already on the couch and he was just going to sleep upstairs with Drake. But this is on the 5th. The occurrence happened on the 6th, and this was on the 6th kind of morning-ish when she gave these accounts. She was released from the hospital on the 8th, where her and Darren were questioned again. And this is where their stories kind of changed. Darlie said that she was woken up by her son Damon touching her, saying, "Mommy, mommy." This is where her chasing after the intruder turned to walking after the intruder because of the blood spatter. The blood spatter showed round droplets, no I think they said like no velocity. There was no running. If there was, I guess there's like this little tail, and I think we're going to put a picture on the blood spatter. So they're just round droplets as if blood is just dripping. Something I forgot to add in there. She said when she woke up that as she was walking towards the intruder, that she heard glass break, but again, the lights were off, so she was unable to see what had broken. So that is interesting. When the investigators came, they did sum up that her feet prints and the blood and all that stuff was underneath the glass. So had that glass broke, and she ran out there for the first time blood is getting anywhere, the blood would have been on top of the wine glass that fell off the wine rack. So that's just one of the many discrepancies that we've read. Like I said, there's like 14 myths that we're going to go over later on. So this case just... there's a lot of small details, and I'm sorry if we don't get everything right. We did this research, and like I said, we had a few different websites we went to. We watched a slew of documentaries, and they were all basically all the same. But there was just some outstanding evidence that, she changed her story. Darlie was represented by Doug Mulder, who, interestingly enough, was also representing her husband. So her husband and his mother went on some news thing, and there was a gag order. The judge put a gag order, so no one was allowed to talk about this case. But they did, so they got subpoenaed into court and got in trouble for all that. But he was representing Darren. He also decided to represent Darlie in this case. So there was kind of conflicting, like, what about Darren? Darren was never looked into at all with anything. It was, he didn't do it, okay, done. Like, they never looked into anything. But Harrison and I were talking, like, how convenient would it have been if Darlie was doing all this stuff in the house and Darren took that sock and ran it out? Because they were saying one of the biggest reasons why it's not Darlie didn't do it, is because how'd she get that sock?
They said she would have had to run the length of a football field in half.
75 yards there and back. Or 75 there, 75 back, 150.
And it would have had to been after or before she cut herself, otherwise she would have been bleeding. Mm-hmm. And it had to have been, what they said, by the kind of wounds that her kids had, they would not have enough time from when that happened to get the blood, plant the sock, get back, call, and get there in order for them to still be alive.
Because Devin didn't receive, deadening, they didn't kill him right away. The medical examiner and surgeon said that the wounds that he had inflicted on him, he could live for 8 to 9 minutes. And that's based on just, theory, and this happened so he could live this long. So, we know...
It could have been longer.
Yes. We don't know how long he actually lived because we were not there. These are all Darlie's accounts. These are all Officer Waddell and the people
prediction based off of evidence.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the part 1 of 2. We are going to be going into more detail on the second one, a little bit in conclusion with what's going on so far. So Darlie was arrested and charged with the murder of her 2 kids, which we actually will kind of get into a little bit more of what the actual murder charges were. And on the second part, we are going to really discuss more of the myths of what happened there, the forensic details, the conflicting stories from what she's saying to what is actually told. It's
really, really interesting. I think this next part is going to be my favorite, just because there's so much conflicting evidence.
And there's so many what ifs,
right. And she's on death row now. Okay.
Yeah, death row.
So the case has went to appeal and she's on her final appeal. And like we said, she's on death row. So hopefully this happens sooner rather than later, and that she's not found innocent after she's put to death. So she's supposed to be put to death by lethal injection. They do not have a date, obviously, yet, because there's all this new evidence coming through. And obviously this was in 1996. Okay?
And now it's 2020.
And now it's 2020. So we have so much more technology and advancements in DNA. And she wants all that technology to be used on her case evidence. But, I mean, that's a lot of years. Like, that blood has degraded, and it's just, there's a lot with this next episode. So stick around.
Part
I
two
hope
is
you
gonna be
guys watch
intense.
part 2. And thanks for watching part 1.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.